Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever or wherever you happen to be listening to this. Thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based event and wedding photographer, Tavishima Ayede. So, before we begin, an apology for those of you who are also regular listeners of the So You're Getting Married podcast. That's my second podcast. We're currently off the air, if you could call it that, because I have to look for a new hosting solution. Because I assumed that Spreaker, that's the platform that I hosted the other podcast on, I assumed it was a free platform, but apparently I've run out of space, and I'm not willing to make the financial investment that will be necessary to continue on that platform, especially since this is something I intend to do long term, even though I don't expect to make any financial returns from it. That's the second podcast, of course. So, for those of you who've been listening to the other podcast as well, when we're back on the air, I'll let you guys know. Hopefully, I'll be able to migrate it to Anchor, which I'm currently recording this podcast on. I think I have an old account on Anchor, and if I'm able to revive that, then I'll be able to have the other podcast up and running again. And when that's the case, I'll let you guys know. So for those of you who haven't tried the other podcast before, it's just one where I offer my personal perspectives on things relating to relationships, wedding, family life, things of that nature. Because as a wedding photographer, just like the rest of you who are listeners to this podcast who are also in the wedding and the event space, we're continually surrounded by these sorts of occasions and themes. So I'm sure you wedding planners, makeup artists, MCs, videographers can bear testimony to that fact that, it's our world basically. So wedding today, children come tomorrow, birthday parties next tomorrow, and on and on and on. Okay, so now with that out of the way, on to the topic for today. Today I want to look at something that I heard referred to on a podcast and what I thought was quite funny as premature presentation syndrome. That's PPS, premature presentation syndrome. The idea behind premature presentation syndrome is that some people, when having sales conversations, when they're with a client, they just go straight into the presentation when it's not the ideal time to do so. So, when do you make a presentation? Ideally, you should launch into your presentation, and when I say presentation, I mean that those how want I say it, all the material that you prepared before the meeting, where you are going to talk about what you offer, how you offer it, the investment, the price that is required, your features, your benefits, what you can do for the customer, and all of that good jazz. So that is what I mean when I say presentation. All that material that you prepared ahead of time. Now, ideally, you should launch into your presentation only after you have discovered what the client's ideal vision is, what they need, and what they want. So there's very little point in saying, good morning and welcome to Adekemi's Golden Wedding Planning Services. We are the best wedding planning outfit in Abuja for the last 10 years plus. We handle sophisticated weddings and tourists, blah 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 blah, and on and on and on. There's no point in launching into that 3-minute speech right after you meet the client, because you are not sure what they need or what they want. There's no point in talking about your destination wedding services if the fellow is going to get married and they're getting married back home in Makudi, for instance. Then your whole spiel about destination weddings was just a waste of both of you's time, actually. So you need to find out what it is that they want, what they need, what the ideal vision is before you launch into your presentation. So premature presentations are a waste of time, I'm sure you've gathered. Well, not always, because sometimes you run into your whole thing and it just so happens that, oh yes, this random fellow who walked into your office actually is interested in planning a wedding in Dubai. But that is, it's a hit and miss. So it wastes time, it could be hit and miss, because you could be talking about a whole lot of stuff that are irrelevant to this prospective client who has hit you up on Instagram or walked into your office, or who you've just met at the bridal fair. And another thing is premature presentations, they lead to objections and they lead to ghosting, because Nigerians, for the most part, I think, are polite people. So if someone shows up at your office or at the wedding fair and you just vomit all over him the whole presentation about destination weddings and blah, 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 the person will just say, okay, thank you very much. Can I have a flyer? Or can you text me what your Instagram handle is? Let me think about it. I'll get back to you next week, Monday, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, they go ghost. That's because they've listened to a whole bunch of stuff that is irrelevant to them. And quite frankly, there may be some stuff in there that you have said that may have scared them off. So with you droning on about destination wedding services, and he's getting married in Makudi, he might just slip away quietly, try to save face, even though you do offer, what should I call it? Wedding planning for local weddings as well, with some of your affiliates in different regions. So you actually need to find out what it is that the fellow want, the bride and the groom want, before you launch into your presentation. So that's it pretty much. Oh, and of course, for those of you who've been listening from the beginning, you know that trying to find out what they want, what they need, and what their ideal vision is a matter of asking questions. So remember the question frameworks that we've been talking about so far in the earlier episodes of the podcast. So basically, someone shows up, don't just launch into your presentation. You do the usual chit chat, try to build some rapport, and then of course you launch into, so how can I help you? And then you start asking more and more and more questions. Okay, so it's the 25th of May. Where's the wedding? Oh, it's going to be in Makudi. What do you have in mind? Okay, 200 people only. Oh, okay. Why? Okay, you guys are a high-profile family. You guys don't want crowd. Blah blah blah. You know. Oh, okay. That's very good. That's the sort of thing we do. We do handle high-profile clientele and this and this and that. And these are the packages and blah 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 blah. But anyway, bottom line is, forgive me, I made that up. I'm not even sure if it was coherent, because I'm not sure how you wedding planners roll, the kind of questions that you ask. But basically, that's the thought process. Ask questions, find out what it is that they want, what they need, what the ideal vision is, and then in your presentation, you will now be able to find out how everything you offer can be tailored to help them execute what they are looking for on that day. So you show how, with the knowledge you have gained, you're going to be able to bring your team on board to get them that ideal wedding, or work with that budget, or whatever it is. Anyway, let me not belabor the point. I guess the point is clear, relatively straightforward. Okay, so that's it for today, and thank you guys for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayide. Thank you guys for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode.